Hello everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Suzanne Nevin and I'm a psychosocial researcher at the Sydney Children's Hospital and the University of New South Wales with the CoGENeS team. And I'm thrilled to be able to chat to you today about our research, which has involved developing a suite of positive psychology resources for families of children with genetic epilepsies. I also have a family member with a developmental and epileptic encephalopathy, and I'm exceptionally passionate about partnering with families to take steps to understand how we can improve psychosocial supports. So to give you a brief overview, the majority of my presentation relates to the research completed as part of my PhD, which explored the psychosocial impacts of undergoing genetic testing for a developmental and epileptic encephalopathy. This research serves as the background context, which led to the co-development of the positive psychology resources we have named Finding a Way. I will then briefly introduce you to a new project we have just begun working on, which involves engaging clinicians to co-develop positive psychology resources that may be able to equip them to provide appropriate psychosocial support for families. So, the wonderful presenters over the course of this conference have emphasised that our understanding of genetic epilepsies has evolved dramatically with advances in genetic research and technologies. Now, achieving a genetic diagnosis is a huge step forward for families for improving patient outcomes and providing personal value. However, we also know that the complexity of rare genetic epilepsies can introduce many challenges. So often families do not receive a genetic diagnosis, and currently very few children with genetic epilepsies have a known or approved treatment. This means that the lives of many affected families can be shaped by tense uncertainty and social isolation without a clear treatment pathway or a body of information to wrap around their child's genetic diagnosis. So at this point in time, research to understand the collective psychosocial impacts and experiences of families is so important for us to develop evidence-based resources that can support navigating these complex and under-resourced group of conditions. Over the next few slides, I'll briefly walk you through some of the research we have undertaken with families that is aimed to understand their shared psychosocial experiences, in particularly which served as a platform to co-develop the positive psychology resources. So the first step in our project involved conducting a systematic review. And this is the fancy term used to describe a deep dive into the medical research to uncover and examine the available literature documenting a particular topic. Our review in particular aims to understand parents' information needs, as well as their preferences for both content and style of information delivery. Results from the review highlighted a number of unmet needs, in particularly the need for understandable, high quality and reliable information about their child's genetic epilepsy diagnosis, as well as personalized information on how to manage and navigate their child's condition and their own psychological well-being. A second finding from the review was that parents' needs for information content differ during different stages of their child's development post-diagnosis. So this for us really emphasised the need to keep parents updated with current and stage-specific materials relevant to their child's condition progression. And findings from the systematic review have provided an evidence base to inform the development of online resources carefully designed by the CoGENeS team to support accessible information communication between families and clinicians. And these resources are available for download from our Pediatric Epilepsy New South Wales website, and which I've included a link to here. Secondly, this review served as a backbone to a very exciting project called Gene Compass, led by Dr. Robertson and the CoGENeS team, who will present more about this project shortly. Now, we know that engagement in genetic services is complex, and very little is known about parents' experiences receiving genetic testing, as well as psychosocial impacts of a genetic diagnosis. So for this reason, we conducted a mixed method study which involved in-depth interviews with parents whose child had received genetic testing for a developmental and epileptic encephalopathy. And our interviews set out to assess parent satisfaction with genetic services, as well as the impact of genetic testing on quality of life outcomes. Our interviews identified 4 priority areas wherein parents highlighted that we really needed to improve psychosocial supports. And these areas included informational support, companionship support, and parent support networks, practical resources that are tailored to their child's needs and tailored to their needs in raising a child with a genetic epilepsy. And this also included continued genetic counselling, particularly for those families faced with a genetic diagnosis in the acute care setting. And a recurring theme that was consistently reported across all interviews was the need for access to specialised psychological support that matched families' needs during different stages of their child's diagnosis. So this recurring theme really brought to light that unfortunately the well-being of parents in the context of rare pediatric epilepsy conditions is often overlooked, and guidelines on how to respond to the psychological support needs of parents are under-researched. So we wanted to create resources that were both evidence-based and directly informed by families. So to achieve this aim, we adopted a co-design approach involving priority setting focus group workshops with families. We synthesized the data from the interviews and the systematic review, and which formed a list of themes. And we then invited parents to participate in our focus group workshops. And the purpose of the workshops was a way of uniting families to learn whether the themes that we had identified from our research accurately matched their shared experiences. Throughout the focus group discussions, parents identified and further refined 6 key domains listed here on the right-hand side of this slide, wherein psychological support was required. We then asked parents to guide us on how we could most effectively and appropriately support their needs and psychological well-being. Parents revealed that there was shared psychological challenges they experienced, particularly related to tendencies to focus on future uncertainties and involving the unpredictability of seizures. And parents also reported that hearing other parent stories provided hope and highlighted the need to build resources that balance the challenges families faced with appreciating and expressing gratitude for their child and family milestones. And finally, parents highlighted the power of reframing their child's genetic diagnosis and the resilience that brought them to better face the inherent challenges they faced. So, following group analysis of this focus group feedback, we came to the realization that the concept of positive psychology was a useful framework in helping us to better support families with strength-based tools tailored to their unique experiences. So positive psychology has been defined as a scientific approach to studying human thoughts, feelings, and behavior with a focus on strengths instead of weaknesses. So the next step in our co-development process involved translating the themes prioritized by parents in the focus group workshops and applying them in the form of positive psychology resources that mapped onto their psychosocial experiences. We have named this suite of positive psychology resources Finding a Way, and each video is approximately 5 minutes in duration and includes quotes from our parents. And the videos also include key strength-based messages designed to promote mobilization of the family system and to support adaptation to their child's diagnosis. I've included a link to our resources here, which are also available from the Pediatric Epilepsy New South Wales website, and I would be thrilled if you'd be willing to check them out and let me know what you think. So this brings us to the final step of our research to date, which involves the evaluation. So we know that positive psychology resources have been shown to be beneficial in other research disciplines, but to our knowledge, there are no positive psychology resources specifically designed for caregivers of a child with a genetic epilepsy. So to really understand whether Finding a Way provided any benefits to parents external to our network and to parents who did not have the capacity to participate in our research, we invited families of children with a genetic epilepsy to participate in an online survey and to assess and explore whether our resources were attractive and acceptable to parents. And we were also interested in learning whether interested in exploring the emotional impact of the resources. And we are exceptionally grateful that several rare disease collaborative groups kindly shared a study flyer so that we were able to expand recruitment to families outside our network using social media platforms. And the final step in our online survey included open-ended questions to assess what parents liked about the positive psychology resources and what suggestions they had for where further resources may be required. We were so grateful and impressed that 167 parents from over 18 countries engaged with their surveys and reviewed our resources. And overall, our results were exceptionally positive, pun intended, with parents reporting that the content was understandable, relevant, and that they also would have found the resources helpful when their child was first diagnosed with a genetic epilepsy. Our results also showed that parents were highly satisfied with the resources and reported that they provided helpful suggestions about seeking and accepting help from others, as well as the shared experiences of caregiving. And they also supported improved understanding about how to manage their personal relationships. Finally, frequently reported emotional responses after reviewing the resources included feeling comforted, hopeful, connected, and reassured. And this was really important to us because we set out to co-develop resources that would promote emotional sharing, as well as a sense of perceived support and connectedness. Our open-ended questions reveals that parents provided very valuable recommendations to improve the resources going forward. And in particularly, the gaps they saw included the need to normalise access to parent psychological support for the shared challenges families faced. And our results also highlighted the need to improve the online accessibility of the resources so that they can be shared with other families to support parent interpersonal communication and connection. And importantly, parents prioritise the need to extend the resources to educate clinicians on how to offer tailored psychological support in managing challenges associated with parent grief and uncertainty. And this was particularly important among parents of undiagnosed children, as well as for the additional challenges parents faced during later stages of their child's genetic epilepsy diagnosis. So our research really demonstrated the importance of engaging both parents and clinician communities to understand their shared experiences. Given the unique and close relationship families and clinicians often have, we feel it's very important that both perspectives are integrated into the research realm. Taking parent feedback into account, we specifically set out to establish a new project, which we have named ClinicWhip, which aims to understand how we can develop resources to support clinicians to better support families. So from the clinician perspective, we already know that there is limited availability of clinicians with specific expertise in caring for children living with rare and complex genetic epilepsy diagnoses. The role of clinicians can also be made more difficult due to rapid gene discoveries, as well as the uniqueness of individual genetic epilepsy phenotypes. While clinicians providing care for families are often extremely passionate and dedicated to the work they do, it is also common for clinicians to experience frustration, as well as fear communicating distressing information to families. And we know that medical skills training in this arena is often inadequate. So with this in mind, ClinicWhip aims to understand clinicians' needs and to co-develop positive psychology resources that can better empower them to support families. Just like in Finding a Way, we will adopt a co-design framework which will be clinician-driven, involving clinicians from across the network, as well as rural and outreach healthcare communities. And our project has three primary objectives involving engaging and exploring the clinicians' needs in providing psychosocial support to families, co-design workshops designed to partner with clinicians to co-develop positive psychology resources, and an evaluation component, which involves a research to understand whether the co-developed positive psychology resources are helpful to a broader network of clinicians. And secondly, to provide an evidence base to support integration of positive psychology resources into the healthcare system. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. And to summarize, our research has really shown that although genetic epilepsies are individually rare and complex conditions, there are unique psychosocial challenges families can collectively share across individual genetic epilepsy diagnoses. And our research has found that positive psychology resources using evidence-based frameworks can offer tools to better support understanding of the challenges families face, as well as an opportunity to promote strength-based exercises to promote parent well-being and to mobilize family systems in facing adversities. Finally, we are undertaking research to better approach the psychosocial and emotional needs of families, which involves retraining healthcare clinicians to recognise the transferable skills they have to support families of children with rare genetic epilepsies. And our overall vision will be to build on existing supports, connecting families, researchers and clinicians, and to co-develop resource tools that can empower them to move towards a brighter future together. Again, I would just like to say a huge thank you to my team and to all the families who have participated in our research. And if you have any questions, I would really love if you'd like to reach out to me either by email or Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again.